when they actually spend their time listening to this show. What does it mean? It means we're winning.
I'm white, and I've got everything I need. No one clutches their purses when they're in a room alone with me. And I can drive for any neighborhood I please at any hour, and the police don't do a thing. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got everything I need. I'm a guy getting paid more than a girl with a degree. And I can walk down the streets after dark, no one wants to rape me. And I can get a girl pregnant and just as easily flee. Just like my straight white male dad did to me. So if I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. I've got a pile of broken mirrors and I'm walking under ladders and I'm spilling tons of salt, but to me that doesn't matter, cause my skin and my gender and my orientation are the best things to have if you live in this nation. I recommend it highly. If I see a penny on the ground, I leave it alone and fucking flip it. I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need. Shit's gonna work out for me, cause I'm a straight white male in America. I've got all the luck I need.
Hey everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do the show live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. This is viewer and listener supported programming. So if you're on Twitch watching, you know how we monetize here. Otherwise, if you're listening to the pod, just go to echoplexmedia.com, click the support link, and pick your favorite way to support the show. And of course, if you don't have any money to spend or don't want to give me any of your money, just tell a friend about the show and maybe they'll give me some money. I'm producer Dave. You can find me on Grindr.
And I'm HK Perrin. You can find me on Mastodon at hperrin at port87.social.
Hell yeah. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Here's Bret and Heather.
Oh, no.
Hey, folks. Welcome to the Dark Horse Podcast live stream, the first one of 2025. Happy New Year to all. This is the 257th? Eighth live stream, obviating any need to discuss the primeness or not of the number. We are obviously broadcasting from a brand new space. We are still working on the details of it, but anyway, we hope that you enjoy it. I am Dr. Bret Weinstein. This is Dr. Heather Heying, and
hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. We are thrilled to be in our new studio. We've got this beautiful piece of art behind us, which we will show you different parts of as we proceed. The only thing missing really is Justin, our zebra, named last week. But he got named and then he got canceled. It happens.
Yeah, I think of him more as put out to pasture.
Oh, no, he's very much inside elsewhere.
He's elsewhere. Well, maybe if he's lucky, we'll put him out to stud.
Maybe we will. So here we are, New Year. We're going to spend a bunch of the day talking about...
Do you think they kiss?
This is the worst banter I've ever heard.
That's why we don't really do banter. Unless I'm telling you to shut the fuck up.
I do like that they brought all the wood back. It wasn't wooden enough before.
Right, I know. My God.
Things from last year and what it looks like going forward, but various big stories from last year that we covered and some that we didn't. No Q&A today, but as always, there's a watch party going on at Locals. We appreciate you joining us there. There's early drop of the Inside Rail live podcast that Bret does with guests happen there, and we've got other original content. Our Locals, our Discord server is there. So much good stuff. So join us there. And as always, at the top of the hour, we have 3 sponsors whom we have carefully chosen, and we'll start.
I've carefully chosen not to know anything about their sponsors.
Shame on their sponsors for sponsoring such a crappy podcast.
But since they sponsor Bret and Heather, I wouldn't take their money. Unless it was a lot. And if I got to dunk on Bret and Heather in the ad.
By the way, we're sponsored by Honey. Just kidding.
I could. I don't know if it is, in fact.
That was a long sponsor read.
If it is, I will go ahead and.
There were 3.
Is it what's on our calendar?
I don't know if it's on our calendar, but I do remember.
See, this is part of the problem, guys,
what it
right there.
was.
He has no idea it's on our calendar. Right there. You have it in a nutshell. This is the
Point
source
taken.
of most conflict that we have.
Guilty as charged. Nolo contendere.
I'd imagine going to a dinner party at their house.
On the calendar side. However,
How would I know what's on my calendar?
I mean, it's a fair question.
For a long time, and it's been looming, and today it does loom because it is right here, one of our shared calendars has suggested that today you need to spell necessarily and fascism.
Yes.
Now, was that the New Year's resolution that you were thinking of?
Yes, I took a new tack last year, which was I was going to set the bar so that instead of being a classic where you don't live up to your New Year's resolution, I could actually do it. And
So did you do that here in Dark Horse?
Yes.
I see. Okay, so that's why it is.
Does he not know how to spell those words?
Opposed to a personal calendar or the family calendar,
oh, as for why it's on what calendar,
Yeah, I don't know.
no idea. But it does
or that it's on a calendar.
exactly. But not
He needs to learn how to spell when he writes out, well, this isn't necessarily fascism. It may look like it, but it's not necessarily fascism, and here's why.
You do it?
I think so.
Okay. Which will you start with? Will we be able to tell?
Ouch. FASCISM.
There you go.
Nice.
Hooray.
Exactly.
I mean, that's an easy word.
Good job, Bret.
And
You got a gold star.
necessarily would be, can you use it in a sentence? No, that's how a spelling bee works. It would be NECESSARILY.
Very well done.
Wow. I'm so proud of our little boy. He's growing up.
This reminds me of a little conflict we had with a different person. I don't know.
He can't pass a 3rd grade spelling test.
Too long for sure. But
And also, if we come back, if next week I ask you, will you still be able to smell them? Will you still be able to
All
smell?
right, Bret, now spell I cup.
I can't promise you one way or the other, but I can tell you if you put it on the calendar, it's not likely to make any difference.
This I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. If any of you out there have any hints for getting husbands to look at their own calendars, be much useful. That's not the way I was supposed to say that.
No, but
This is a couples therapy session? What the fuck's going on?
I get it.
I would be much obliged.
All right.
All right. So I spent some time going through some of what we talked about last year, and I wanted to just have us go through some of these things, have a reminder, and maybe in some cases some updates, and some of what you've got to do this week might fit in well.
So can I just give, I don't know whether my stuff is going to come up inline or afterwards, but just so people know that it's coming, I am going to discuss the rifts that have arisen in Unity land between MAGA, Maha, and Unity. And
Unity. Remember when he fucking did that Unity thing where he pretended he was going to run a presidential campaign? Do you remember that?
Yep. I definitely do.
He fucking damn it. Because every normal person that he tried to get to like get involved with his ticket, like told him to go fuck himself. And so he ended up with like Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard as his people. And I think even they ended up telling him to go fuck himself. Unity
Yep.
land?
And what they mean. And
Everyone's been on the edge of their seat to hear what's been going on with Unity.
accomplish the things that are on our collective agenda. So anyway, we'll see if they come up in line. But if it comes up after, so be it.
Yeah, and just broadly, the sort of the topics that I found popping up. What doesn't show up in this list at all is really our analysis and the places where we weren't explicit.
And what the fuck are you going to talk about for 2 hours and 20 minutes?
Something topical, but we're doing a broader analysis, which is, I think, a large part of the unique value that we bring. But the topic.
There is no uniqueness or value in this podcast. It is the same as every other intellectual dark web podcast, and it makes you dumber by listening to it.
Does that apply to us as well?
Probably. I mean, we listen to it and we play it for our listeners. So
I'm dumb. You're dumb. Everybody who listens to us is dumb. Checks out.
I think we'll talk about them here, are diversity, equity, and inclusion and its downstream effects, fats and food, and the healthy.
the biggest effect that diversity, equity, and inclusion has had on anything is to rustle the jimmies of every single conservative who hears those words. Like not like the actual policies, but if they hear the words, those words, boy, do their jimmies get rustled.
Boy, do they like the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff when you talk about things like the Senate and the Electoral College, though, right?
What do you
Those are
mean?
DEI programs for a cow that gets a bigger say
true.
in the Senate than I do.
Yep. Yeah. Something I like to remind people is that if you take North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and the other one up there, Wyoming, if you take all four of those states, add up all of the population, multiply it by 8, you still have less than the population of LA County.
Yeah, but
Not
I'm from
California.
The Bay. I'm from the
just
Bay.
LA County.
I'm from the Bay. Specifically, now I'm from Oakland, so I really hate LA.
But the fact that, those people get 8 senators and LA County gets a fraction of 1 is like really incredibly stupid and unfair.
Or DEI
Yep.
Pharma,
for a cow.
of course.
Yep.
Whose pandemic treaty? Right? Fell apart. Bad science proliferating and good science getting defunded. Gender ideology. The magnetic field of the earth. Yeah. Immigration, Panama, the Darien Gap. I've got one little side thing that didn't fit anywhere else, so we'll get there. Free speech, the election, Rescue the Republic, Unity, and then some randomly cool biology things that we touched on last year. So that's
This is going to take you 2 hours and 20 minutes.
it doesn't begin to capture the scope, but let's start,
Excellent.
shall we? Okay.
This isn't bad though, because for the year 2024, we fucking ignored these people. So if they're going to give us like a rundown of all the dumb shit we didn't listen to them talk about in 2024, not the worst thing that could happen to begin 2025, right?
Yeah. I mean, are they relevant at all anymore?
They get more views than we do.
Implying that we're not irrelevant?
Very early last year, like almost to the day, I think it was January 2nd of 2024, Claudine Gay stepped down as the president of Harvard amid strong and compelling allegations that, for instance, she had plagiarized much of her dissertation. So that is one of the.
No, there's a difference between plagiarism. We went over this. I forget when, but there's a big difference between plagiarism and like being an inexperienced academic and not properly citing things when you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. If you put quotes around something, you're not plagiarizing. Like,
Right.
It might not be cited correctly, but you're not plagiarizing it.
right. And the other thing is, this is one of the things that these that Eric does all the time that they're about to do here too. The skill set of being like a proper good academic is a different skill set than the skill set of being an administrator who manages an entire university, right? You could not spend a day in academia and be a fantastic manager and do the shit out of the job of managing a university.
Yep.
That maybe the DEI insanity is beginning to wobble on its pedestal that many have put it on. Not too long thereafter, a bunch of...
But she got kicked out of there because she didn't fucking tear gas the fucking Gaza protesters. What are they talking about?
Yep.
Were grounded. Remember this?
Oh, yeah.
After a panel, including a window, flew off mid-flight out of Portland. And somehow everyone was fine. The plane turned around.
Because it popped off quickly after takeoff. So they were at low altitude, averting a disaster.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember this. They tried to blame that on DEI. Remember that when the fucking thing fell off the plane? They're like, oh, I heard there was a black guy on the crew. They fucking fixed the plane.
Yeah, and the problem there is literally capitalism.
Right. Right.
Like,
They were like, well, we can save some money.
Boeing is trying to maximize profit, and you just, leave off a few bolts on every plane, and guess what? You just maximized some profit.
And as we reported, James Lindsay discovered when digging into the story.
Also, I don't think that that's true, that if that happened at cruising altitude, it would be as much of a disaster as he thinks. There would be more... There would be more of an explosive decompression, but that doesn't mean that like the plane will just fall apart. Like, it was a door. It wasn't like, half the plane.
Right. And we know about as much about what would happen at cruising altitude as they do, but I would imagine that the planes are designed in such a way that things can fail on them and they don't just kill everybody.
Yes.
So here they're going to say that James Lindsay discovered something and it wasn't the clitoris.
Low altitude, averting a disaster.
Yeah. And as we reported, James Lindsay discovered when digging into the story, Boeing had tied incentive compensation to inclusion starting in 2022. And so that's why...
the plane wasn't in... These were like 737s. These are planes some of them are from the fucking 70s. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, this particular one, I believe, was the 747, right?
Oh,
but it was like one of their newer ones.
I thought they were 37s, but whatever. That doesn't matter. Newer doesn't mean built in 2022.
Yeah, the problem here was that they didn't put all the bolts in the door plug. Like, how is that a problem of DEI? That's a problem of
training,
failure to manage your company because you're trying to maximize profits,
or just training, or just a fucking mistake that didn't get caught.
I mean, it's been pretty well documented that their safety ethos has gone very much downhill since their merger with some other company. I can't remember which, but the idea behind that merger, most people thought, oh, that other company has like a terrible, safety culture. Boeing will make that company better, but it went the other way. The terrible safety culture, infected Boeing, and now Boeing just cares about profits. They don't care about safety anymore. Not completely, but like, they're willing to make safety less of a priority in order to maximize profits. And that's what happens with companies, capitalism. You got to maximize the value for the sharebholders. In fact, I believe the Supreme Court made it illegal to not
but Boeing,
maximize
this isn't a case where Boeing was a public interest corporation before they merged with McDonnell Douglas. I mean, the culture may have gotten worse, or this could literally just be a problem. I mean, this could just be bad training, right? Where they cut corners on training, not necessarily on the bolts, right? Because the training probably costs more than the bolts.
Yeah. That's what I mean is like, normally there would be more inspections that would catch that thing. But like either the inspections that happened people weren't really taking their time to actually inspect the plane, or the inspections just didn't happen. And that's all cost-cutting measures.
Somebody from the chat just said that they actually hired a subcontractor to do that work too. So peak capitalism.
DEI related madness that there were many people who were saying this is of course nothing to do with DEI, but if they literally had begun, and there was the paper trail suggests that Boeing had indeed begun to tie compensation to inclusion, and they were.
Well, how about the fact that like Tesla makes the least safe cars in America, and they don't give a shit about DEI?
In fact, exceeded their benchmarks for doing so, that we might exactly expect failures to begin to happen.
So this is crazy too, because we're talking about airline mechanics. And I'm pretty sure that airline mechanics, while skewing pretty heavily toward men, was already a pretty diverse fucking workforce, right? I'm assuming, and I don't know, I don't have any fucking, I'm not an airline mechanic, and I don't follow the industry, but I would assume that department, say, of the company was far more diverse, like racially diverse or whatever, than maybe the legal department was, right? Like,
yep.
Just because sort of based on what I know about these different like kinds of industries and these different kinds of occupations. But this is just stupid. This is dumb. They're really just trying to say that like if they would have just hired more white people, this wouldn't have happened.
Yep, that is what they're saying.
And I don't think it's legitimate to claim that you can't establish a connection between these things. You know, you've set up a policy with a...
That's not the claim. The claim is that you haven't established a connection between these things.
Well, and like, this is funny because this is a correlation versus causation thing. And these people are supposed to be like a science broadcast. And we're like, I mean, we're sober now because the lights are white, but I mean, we're a couple guys who like drink and talk about these, like gossip about these people, right? And we understand the difference here, that this is just, it just so happened. Also, if the company had this policy, we don't know what the policy of the subcontractor was around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's true.
Absolutely. What do I want to say? An obvious prediction that if you're not drawing from the largest possible pool on the basis of competence alone, that you will create a less competent pool, and how much less competent.
But these jobs are like this has to be like highly regimented work. Sure, you want like competent people who know how to use the tools and have experience, but this is like highly regimented work where you don't really got to figure out how to attach the door, right? Like, this door has been attached on hundreds of these things have been attached hundreds of thousands of times, and there is a correct way to do it that is known to the people that are doing it.
Yeah, but I think right now what Bret is saying is that only white men know how to screw a bolt into a door.
I'd like to see Bret try to fucking be an airline mechanic for a day. My God, that's probably hard work.
Engineering end up being... Yeah. We don't know, but it's an obvious question.
Yeah, it's a statistical argument that does not depend on any population being on average more or less excellent than another.
Yep.
It depends on the size of the pool being as large as possible.
But wouldn't DEI make the pool bigger because now it's everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
After the Democrats excluded Bobby Kennedy Jr. from the, I can't figure out where to look. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to see the things I need to see.
Well, they're on your computer screen.
Democrats excluded Bobby Kennedy Jr. from the presidential debate, which led, of course, to him endorsing Trump later.
Excuse you, ma'am, there were no debates on the Democratic side. There usually aren't when there's an incumbent who is running again. HK, you're 10 years or so younger than me, maybe 10 or 12 years younger. But do you remember any time that an incumbent president who was running again had to debate anybody during the primaries?
No. Republican or Democrat, no.
They don't do it. It's like a foregone conclusion that is that a good or a bad system? It might be a bad system. It seems to have not worked out so well for the Democrats this last time around. But that's a different question than like, was there malfeasance or was this just business as usual? Like was there a Republican primary that we could really speak of? I mean, there wasn't even a Republican incumbent. I mean, depending on who you ask. Some people thought Trump was still the fucking president, but those were QAnon freaks. But they essentially had an incumbent too, and there was really no. I don't even think Trump showed up to any of the so-called Republican debates, like during the primary.
Yeah, I don't think he did. It was debates with like other people who were like way behind him in all the polls.
Right, so they did the same thing over there, basically.
Yep.
Later on.
Yeah, so the reason Bobby Kennedy Jr. Endorsed Trump is because he's essentially a conservative. Like, not fully, he has some like liberal views, but he's very far from a leftist. You know,
really?
he sides with conservatives.
I think it was because the Kamala people told him to fuck off. And he's mostly about himself. And he figured, well, I could, if I don't endorse Trump and he does win, I'm not going to have a seat at the table. But if I endorse him and he does win, I will have a seat at the table. I think it wasn't ideological. I think it was personal.
Yeah, I also think it doesn't matter at all. Like, no one cared what he had to say either way.
I think I think that he may have had some impact, but it was minimal. I don't think he delivered the election to Donald Trump. No.
He may have given him, let's say, a few thousand votes out of like 70 million. That's not even a drop in the bucket.
Biden debate in June somehow made half the country realize overnight what the other half have been saying for years, which is that Biden was not fit for office. So the Democrats went with the DEI.
No, he was not fit to run for office again. I think he'd be fine because the president's job is to delegate and listen to other people.
Kamala
yeah, and Donald Trump isn't fit for office, but
said before
he's going to take office anyway.
Earlier, that he was going to choose I don't remember if actually we've talked about this, but I think he just said he was going to choose a woman. I don't think he said he was going to choose a black woman, but maybe he did say that.
I think he might have said woman of color.
Yeah, either way, he definitely specified some demographics. So by this, the same kind of DEI crazy logic, like you limit the size of the population, you're not necessarily going to get the best. Of course, once chosen,
that's just not true. Like, if you take two people who are absolutely the same in every way except their race, like, who do you think these two would pick?
The one that tells
person.
them that they're beautiful and smart.
They would pick the white person. So it's not, it's not that you're limiting the pool. It's that you're leveling the playing field.
And in this case,
you're saying like the vast majority of Supreme Court justices in the history of the United States have been white men.
So, and the thing that they're talking about where he said he was going to choose a woman of color, maybe he already knew who he was going to choose. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he already made his choice when he had announced that it was going to be a woman of color, or he was like 90 to 95% sure that he already knew. And so he said, well, we're not quite sure yet, but I'm going to pick a woman of color, because he was pretty sure who it was going to be. Do you know what I'm saying? Because this stuff isn't always what it seems. And you'd think that conspiracy-minded folks like Bret and Heather would know that.
But the fact that like less than 1% of the Supreme Court justices in the history of the United States have been black women, and these two are freaking the fuck out about it. Like, it's just the most racist you could be, right?
Yeah. Again, I just think maybe he already knew who he was going to pick. Maybe it's not. The things don't always have to be exactly what they seem, especially when a politician is talking.
Pick by the Democrats for the presidency. Kamala Harris quickly revealed that she had nothing to say, and even if she did, she couldn't really say it anyway.
Wait, what?
Even that is
She
generous.
was a district attorney and then the attorney general, and before that she was a fucking trial attorney. You think she don't know how to talk? What they're talking about is that she was a little bit kooky and fun, and that was like part of her appeal. Like, I don't like her politics, but if she had a dinner party, boy howdy, I'd go to hers instead of the Bret and Heather's. Hers would be fun. Right?
Yep.
Hers would be cool. There'd be good music and shit at hers.
Yep.
generous.
Yeah, that's very generous. Except, of course, she did have a couple things to say, as we covered in October of this last year before the election. Her opportunity agenda for black men included wanting to legalize marijuana.
Right.
Which,
because those laws have just have she's a little bit of hypocrite there after throwing all them people in jail for weed for all them fucking years. But historically, that has disproportionately affected black men.
Yep.
The criminalization of cannabis, because that's who got arrested for it. Even though everybody was kind of using cannabis at the same rate, black men were more likely to get caught for it for, whatever reason.
Yep.
And then the sentences for the same cannabis crime would be harsher for black men for, whatever reason.
I mean, I think exactly as the reaction I had then. It's like, how is that not the most demeaning and racist thing that you've done? Like, how is that specifically for black men? Okay. And
because if you look at the incarceration statistics, you dumb late, you're supposed to be a scientist.
Election, confused professors,
But
including
she has to pretend that someone else realizing the injustices built into the system that we have, she has to pretend that that's in fact the racist thing.
Right. It takes racism.
It goes back to shit. What was everyone used to? What did all the Republicans used to be mad at before it was DEI? I can't remember. Yeah, CRT. So it's like CRT, realizing that there are injustices built into the system is bad for them because they benefit from those injustices. So they have to pretend that that's actually racist. I benefit from those injustices, but I don't pretend that it's not racist, or I don't pretend that CRT is racist.
When I was young, my friend said
I'm actually not
a
complete trash person, unlike these two.
So when I was young, one of my friends jokingly said, do you have to be racist to notice racism? He was kidding, but it was very funny. It was very funny. He said it to this guy who was clearly fucking racist. It was very funny.
At Smith College said insane things like, quote, Harris ran a flawless campaign. And this while evidence was emerging that the campaign had wildly mismanaged funds, funneling donations to already rich entertainers. Right. I mean, there was plenty of evidence that was actually probably the most flawed campaign and perhaps the most flawed candidate ever to be run. But you had not just that one professor at Smith, but others claiming that she had run an utterly flawless campaign.
It was.
I mean, it was a pretty flawed standard Democratic campaign, other than like trying to appeal to Republicans. That part was weird.
They've been doing that forever.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Those are Republicans. Friend, they're going to vote for Republicans.
Yep.
Way it could have been flawed.
In
it
much
was
the same way that the CDC ran a flawless COVID campaign.
Exactly.
They did a pretty good fucking job with the information they had, especially at the beginning, lady. I don't know what to tell you.
Get to the -1, and there you've got pretty good advice.
And I mean, this actually fits well with DEI. I mean, it's kind of it's you think you're looking at the numerator and you're actually looking at the denominator.
That's a good way of putting it. We should figure out how to.
Yeah, well, it's just the same thing, to the -1.
To the -1, it is, but you think you're looking at the numerator, but that's actually the denominator. Just captures it for the mathematically inclined.
That's right. Continuing with last year in diversity, equity, and inclusion. After the first assassination attempt on Trump, remember that?
The first assassination attempt on Trump.
In 2024.
In 2024,
right,
sure.
Right. Head of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, then head of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle told us that the Secret Service couldn't have been on the roof where the shooter was because of the slope of the roof. And she thereafter stepped down. And of course, that first assassination attempt on Trump also revealed in the coverage that we saw in the immediate aftermath how poorly prepared some of the Secret Service were, some of them appearing to be...
She means the black ones, some of them appearing to be black.
Maybe DEI.
DEI hires also.
Oh my God, no. This is like the most elite fucking job you can get.
Yep.
I mean, this is like you do. This is like, do I love the Secret Service? Nope. Is it
So
easy
what
to
job-
get hired for that job? No, not easy.
What job are black people supposed to have, according to Bret and Heather?
I don't think you really want the answer to that question.
They can't be mechanics. They can't work in any sort of law enforcement, I guess. They can't work in politics. They can't be in the justice system. Like,
Is it maybe
what are black people supposed to work?
They're supposed to shut up
work
and
at?
dribble.
Okay.
I'm gonna be careful about saying that. Like, I don't know, but
Well, it's-
certainly the claim that the roof was too steeply
sloped.
pitched,
Yeah.
is an insane thing for anyone to say, and it sounded like this was a person who had actually never met an angle or something.
No, I think we are perfectly positioned to argue that these are that this is a pattern, a DEI pattern, for a couple of reasons.
You know, when
The way science
when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, that was also DEI, I believe,
really works,
right? And the attempt on Ronald Reagan, that was probably also DEI, I'm assuming.
Scientific method. You've got observation, you've got hypothesis, you've got prediction, you've got test. Up here in observation, you've got anecdotes, right? Anecdotes are not to be thrown out. Anecdotes are to be understood, and they cause you to formulate a hypothesis that you then go on to test. So we've got a whole bunch of anecdotes. Is it unscientific to point to the pattern and say, I wonder if that's DEI coming home?
Yes, that is unscientific. Yes.
Yeah, because you're already starting with instead of starting with the conclusion, you're starting with, is it this conclusion? Which is the same thing as starting with the conclusion. You're just putting a question mark on it, right?
But also, anecdotes are not data.
Right. And it might be an okay starting point if you're like hearing this is happening, but that's not like part of the process, right? That might be a reason for you to start the process, maybe in some cases. But they're just starting with the conclusion. And the anecdotes, they're not really anecdotes. The anecdotes have the conclusion built in, probably, at least the ones they're talking about. It's like, well, wait, and what anecdote? Wait, what are they hearing fucking stories from Secret Service agents like over a beer somewhere? No. You know what a Secret Service agent doesn't do is tell you any stories over a beer. That's their job, is to never tell you a story about their job over a beer. Like, what are they talking about?
They're just drawing incorrect conclusions from sparse data that has nothing to do with what they're talking about.
What we have said here on Dark Horse many times is that correlation does imply causation when it is preceded by a causal hypothesis.
That's right.
And so this was preceded by our causal hypothesis that DEI was going to result in a catastrophe of incompetence.
Friend, no. What you're doing now is you're cherry picking based on what you're calling a causal hypothesis. Causal hypothesis, get the fuck out of here. It's called vibes, and your vibes are bad.
He's cherry picking data, saying like, oh, this bad thing happened, and it happened in a company that was that had a DEI hiring practice. It's like, okay, well, what about all the bad things that happened in companies that didn't have DEI hiring practices? What about all the bad things that happened in that same company before the DEI hiring practices?
And to what extent did this policy even change the demographic of the employees, right? Like, over the course of a year, having a new policy, how much could that possibly change the demographic, like, makeup of the employees in 1 year in this massive company? You would also just have to assume like massive turnover of the airline mechanics, but then you would be assuming that there's just a bunch of airline mechanics out there like twiddling their thumbs. And probably not the case, right?
I do wonder, like, what does Bret think about, like, at what percentage of the employees being black would Boeing planes just start falling out of the sky? Like, where would he put that percentage? Would it be like higher than 14%? Like the population, the percentage of the black population of America? Or like, would it be less than that? Does he think even like 10% black employees and, planes start blowing up? Like, what does he think in terms of like what percentage, like how many white people do you need to make a company work? I guess is what I'm asking, Bret.
And spreading across all domains that applied it for exactly the reason you said at the top of the podcast, which is you're not drawing from the largest pool, and it doesn't matter. Even if the populations are exactly equal in capacity, just the fact that you've limited to a smaller number means you're going to get less than the top qualified person for each position, which means the overall competence of the system.
No, it doesn't, because the top qualified person could be in that limited
Suggest that
limited pool. But also there isn't any sort of like top qualified person when he's talking about like an airline mechanic. That is not something you can be the best at.
Or if you are, right?
No,
if you
no
are,
one-
it's going to be the things that make you the best mechanic in your, I don't know, in your department are going to maybe be things other than your ability to wrench, right? It's going to be your ability to work with other people, your, things that have nothing to do necessarily with the specific qualifications for the job, where everybody loves you, they love working with you, you're easy to work with, you help other people solve problems. And those kinds of things are like they're kind of harder to quantify, and you only learn those things about somebody after you work with them for a while. So it's it's like the idea that for every job opening, there's like one best person out there, and that you better hire them or else is just dumb. Otherwise, no dumb people would ever get employed anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, this is just like, it's so stupid for so many reasons. Like, you can't like rate people in a specific job like that at a population level. Like, you can either say someone's qualified for a job or unqualified for a job to a certain extent, but like once you get beyond that point, how are you going to say like this person is better than this person at this job before you hire them? Like, if they're both qualified, like they might have like extras, like more experience or something, but that doesn't even make them better necessarily.
Right. And, I just figure somebody who's like 92% as good as you could possibly be at being an airline mechanic, probably pretty good fucking airline mechanic, right? Like,
yeah.
What if the person who's 94% as good as you could possibly be just like fucking doesn't flush after they drop a deuce? Like, it's going to create a hostile work environment, right? Like,
yeah. Or what if like, the person you hire is fucking Bret?
that the median, or doesn't matter about the
Instantly not qualified.
capacity is equal, nor if the if the size of the population is not equal, does it suggest that the tails of the distribution go to equal places, even if the size of the population were equal, which they never are.
Yep.
So there's all sorts of ways that populations can differ, and they will differ, and you don't.
Another thing that they're not realizing about DEI is DEI doesn't mean not hiring white people at all. Like, that's not what DEI means. There are still white people working at Boeing. And there were white people working at Boeing when they fucked up that door plug.
You're saying those people are stupid, which we are not.
Right. In fact, if you just take the
No, you're just saying they're unqualified to be an airline mechanic.
completely homogeneous population where all of the demographic indicators are not correlated to anything that affects competence, so it really is totally evenly distributed. If you were to, let's say, exclude Swedes, every so often the most qualified person will be a Swede, and you will not get the most qualified person.
Not rutabagas.
Wow. Hadn't considered a misinterpretation of Swedes.
I think you're talking about Swedish people.
Yes.
Okay.
If I say Norwegian, does that eliminate any
I don't
possibility?
think the British call in.
Good God.
Good, I think. But anyway, the
I
point
believe
is,
that. Okay, go on.
if you exclude any population, you're going to exclude some of the most qualified people.
Right.
So it's always anti-meritocratic to do this, and it's always going to result in a reduction in competence. If you exclude,
I just don't believe that.
it will be small because
Like, if you exclude prisoners,
if you exclude,
like,
They already do
does he
exclude
think,
prisoners.
Yeah, does he think, oh no, the most qualified person isn't going to be hired because you've excluded prisoners?
Yeah, but it depends on who you think are people, HK.
I mean, we exclude children. Should children be airline mechanics? Maybe the most qualified person is 7 years old.
Include a large population of people, the effect is likely to be spectacular, even if competence is exactly equally distributed. We said this, so our causal hypothesis and its prediction were on the table before the miraculous seeming
I just don't believe that there's any such thing as like the most qualified person for something. Like there might be like the most qualified applicant out of a few applicants, but like there's not the most qualified person in like a population.
Yeah.
There's not a best airline mechanic in America. Does that make sense?
I mean, but if there is, that's going to be more factors than their ability to fix an airplane. It's going to be the things I mentioned before. Like they're the people who work under them love them and work hard for them. The people that they work for respect them and let them make decisions without interfering. Do you know what I'm saying? It's going to be
at that point it's
factors.
subjective.
Yeah, other factors.
to come back and say, see, told you.
Yep, absolutely. Just one more. I mean, we touched on several things, of course, last year, but this is a sort of a diverse group of DEI calamities, as you've said. California,
but there's no indication that the fucking door fell off the plane because of this DEI policy.
And there's every indication that the door fell off the plane because of the lack of safety culture in Boeing.
Newsom, remember him?
Yes.
Yes. Mandated in 2024 that folic acid be added to all commercially sold tortillas, which is a terrible and unhealthy idea. And we covered this. We talked about it when it was looking like it was going to happen. And then we talked about it after it did happen on episode 246 in October. It's a terrible idea, a little bit like fluoridating municipal water. You know, it's not.
Oh my God, dude!
Oh, now we're on to water fluoridation. Fuck, dude.
God forbid they put vitamins in the tortilla.
I think it's important to increase, and whether or not you should is its own question. By adding it to a food that people eat in uneven amounts, or water that people drink in uneven amounts, and thus have no control at all over the dose that you are giving to people or that people are getting, is an awful public.
Isn't folic acid a water-soluble vitamin?
In California,
if you get more than you need, you just piss it out.
Yeah, I don't
Does
know.
she not know
I don't
that?
know that much about folic acid. I'm going to be honest here.
Okay, I'll look it up.
This is so crazy that that they're back to water fluoridation. And I want to be pretty clear. I don't care about folic acid.
Mandating a folic acid being added to all commercially sold.
Yes, it is water soluble.
The DEI issue is that Newsom actually claims that this is a, quote, health equity issue. Because he has come to believe that Latina women are particularly deficient in folic acid, and that this is causing a higher number of birth defects because folic acid is purported, I will say, to be a common deficiency in pregnancies that result in birth defects like spina bifida.
She does not believe in folic acid being necessary for developing correctly.
Well, she's saying that it's purported that that folic acid deficiency is correlated, I guess, or possibly causal for birth defects, and there's probably a lot of literature about this that she's kind of yada-yadaing to like act like, well, you know, somebody's opinion somewhere is as follows. But I bet this might be one of them shits that goes back 50 years where there's been like good information about it for like a long time. And that, you know, maybe we could, if either of our mothers remember, did they supplement with folic acid when they were pregnant? It could be the case that they did. And we're old. Well, at least I am.
First of all, there is a question about whether Gavin Newsom is the governor of California as a result of a cryptic program that has excluded smart people from the role. But you can see in this the collision of two themes from our last year. There's the absurdity of DEI and what it does to merit and competence. And you have a classic case of complicated thinking intruding in a complex system where
So what's the problem with putting folic acid in tortillas then?
deficits of folic acid, but no concern over having excessive folic acid, because what you're pointing
Yes,
to
because you piss it out, dude.
and you have no
That's how water soluble vitamins work.
And there might be a level at which it's fucking toxic, right? Because the dose makes the poison, but I'm not sure they're putting anything close to that. And like, if the amount that it would take for it to be toxic would require that you eat like 900 tortillas in 3 hours, we good, right?
I don't know. I might be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. On the right Taco Tuesday, if you give me enough Corona,
But yeah, like, okay, so if you've ever done multivitamins, like if you take a lot of multivitamins and your piss turns like bright yellow, those are the vitamins. That's the vitamins in your piss, because you're pissing it out. Because your body has more than it needs. So it goes, oh, I don't need that. Just put it in the piss. It's water soluble. As opposed to fat soluble vitamins, which you cannot piss out, and you can very easily overdose on fat soluble vitamins.
you will take care of a certain number of deficient people if the deficiency is real. But the point is, you've imagined that there's simply no cost to having too much. And there are some things for which that's close to true. You know, vitamin C, because it's water soluble and we get rid of it easily, seems to be low cost. But is folic acid in that category? Does Gavin have any reason to think it is?
Yeah. What do you do? This guy doesn't do anything all day, but all he does is this show, and you didn't have time to be like, oh, is folic acid like water soluble, like vitamin C, where you took like a second to look it up, even though I was like,
I just typed in folic acid. I hit the Wikipedia link and I did Control F water. And it said folic acid is water soluble, or called it folate. Folate is water soluble.
No,
and I don't think that it is.
Yes, you're just fucking wrong, dude. It is water soluble. What do you mean? No, you didn't even look it up. What the fuck?
We always end up asking the same question. What do they do all day?
Seriously.
All they have to do all day is prepare for this show.
And this in the same era when the so-called public health agencies are telling us that we absolutely must not take something like ivermectin because it's clearly so toxic.
No one is telling you must not take ivermectin.
Right. What they were telling you was they were telling you not to self-prescribe the paste that was used for horses because you could very easily take too much of it. And that they also nobody ever told you that if you have a parasitic infection that is cured by ivermectin, that you should never take ivermectin. Obviously you should. And I think one of the knockoff effects of this, one of the things that's going to be a problem going down the road, is if you do get a parasitic infection and you've watched this dumbassery happen, doctor prescribes ivermectin, you might tell your doctor, I'm not a horse, I'm not taking that. And the doctor will have to explain to you if they know what the fuck you're talking about. Be like, no, I'm not. You have a parasitic infection. This is great medication for the parasitic infection you have, and we really need you to take this.
And is
oh man,
dangerous, even though
this coming from the same organization that tells us not to eat cyanide.
The WHO's essential medicines list had ivermectin as one of the safest drugs.
That's a bad comparison because people do actually tell you not to eat cyanide.
So the World Health Organization, what she was saying is that the ivermectin's on the essential medicines list, but that doesn't mean that you should just take it with your fucking cornflakes. It doesn't mean that you should grind it up and put it in your coffee. Like what the
Yes, it is a medicine. It's not like chips.
It's not like
you
water.
Just sit on the couch and eat an entire bag.
It's not like water where if you don't have it, you just die.
Simultaneously living in a world in which we are told that we must focus on the toxicity of drugs that don't serve someone's hidden purpose. And we must not discuss the toxicity of things that are going to be added to food or water sources without us being able to effectively titrate what we're eating.
You can make your own fucking tortillas, lady.
So, I no longer particularly want to eat
That's true.
tortillas.
But also, no one's telling you not to discuss it. It's that you are spreading misinformation. Like Bret just said that it's not water soluble, so you need to be careful how much you take. And it is water soluble. So Bret just literally spread misinformation. That is incorrect information. So yes, we're saying don't spread misinformation, but no one's telling you can't discuss the safety of folic acid. Go ahead, discuss it. Talk about the actual literature. Don't just like come up with wild hypotheses in your brain and be like, oh, because I misunderstand this thing, it must be dangerous.
Yeah, unless, I guess at all, because commercially available means even people making them in a restaurant themselves and selling them presumably means that in order to be in compliance, and hopefully not everyone will be, but presumably that means that everyone to be in compliance, if you're buying a tortilla from anyone,
It's not a street tortilla. She's doing it. She's a tortilla.
I'm imagining a black
tortilla
of tortillas on the Nevada border. You know how when you cross between countries, there's often a
Wow, these people are so incredibly stupid. It's like it boggles my mind. I don't understand how these two can be this fucking stupid.
That's because you didn't spend 16 to 17 hours a week going over their content with them, with me about them. I'm like, my mind has already been expanded to accept their stupidity.
But they have doctorates. How are they this fucking stupid? They're dumber than a teenager.
I know a lot of people with. I mean, their PhD is in evolutionary biology, not anything related to medicine. So they're just
as an evolutionary biologist, you should understand the importance of folic acid in the reproductive system.
Well, but they would have had to look it up and like rely on other people's work instead of like vibes.
But like they know how to research. Clearly, they have doctorates. They understand the process of research. They just don't fucking do it. They just come up with bullshit and put it out on the internet for all the bullshit lovers to just gobble up.
Like I keep asking, what do they do all day?
Exactly. Yeah.
Dudes making money at the border. Off the books.
So I'm imagining what's a resurgence if it hasn't happened before?
A surgence.
Yeah, I know. Of really awesome food trucks at the border, because the problem with buying your tortillas at the border and having to get inland, California.
No one, like literally, these people are so fucking out of touch. No one is going to look at a tortilla and see, oh, it's got added vitamins. Uh-oh, I better go to Nevada and buy like the enriched flour version. Like, no, people don't they're not scared of vitamins like you two. I mean, there are certain vitamins you should be scared of having too much of, like vitamin A, but like folic acid is not one of those vitamins.
Is that they're not going to be as fresh when you get them. And a fresh tortilla is amazing. Like we've had some fantastic, we've even made them sometimes, and they've been good. But a fresh tortilla made by someone who's been making tortillas all their lives,
I'm sorry, wait. Do they just assume that somebody who makes the tortillas at a restaurant or a stand, they've just dedicated their life to the pursuit of making a tortilla? Like that's just what they do. No, friend, that person has done other things. I guarantee it. That's probably the fucking least interesting part of it. Like, fuck, I got to make tortillas again.
Yeah, there's probably just some little Asian woman in the back making tortillas. Like this is not what I plan to do with my life.
We're missing it.
Are we?
Yes.
Again.
I think so. Okay. The comedy gold is to be found in a sitcom based on the idea that people are sneaking over our southern border with folic acid free tortillas from the home country. I mean, that'd be kind of funny.
It would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that would be absolutely fucking hilarious, Bret.
Make America great again.
You should invest your life savings into making that.
There you go. To make America great and healthy again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And full of delicious tortillas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that DEI food.
I bet when it's taco night at their house, they have one of those circular spinning things that all the white people used to have, and they have like ground beef with very little seasoning, and they buy the like Ortega, like hard shell tacos, and they put fucking lettuce in them and shit. I bet that's taco night at their house. They have a fucking lazy Susan. They're like, gather around, children. We bought the best cheddar cheese.
Food nugget.
In what way is this DEI?
Food taking center stage for so much of what we talked about. So
How the fuck is putting extra folic acid into a tortilla DEI?
The taco discourse in the we set off a taco discourse in the chat while we're not supposed to be really dealing with the chat.
and talking about in 2024. So very early on, in January 10th of 2024, we talked about the risks of polyunsaturated fats on human health. And it was research from 2018, but it had just come to my attention, and the whole question of seed oils and the various kinds of fats were.
Oh no, not the seed oil shit. Oh, I fucking hate the seed oil shit. But fucking, just start complaining about WA, man. Start complaining about WA, man, because this is some fucking MRA shit. It's making your dick shrink.
Are polyunsaturated fats unhealthy? Isn't that like the healthiest kind of fat you could eat?
I don't know, but the thing about it is that like the discourse around this wasn't really about like what kinds of fats you should have, like how much, you know, what the limit is, whether you should be limiting your intake. It was that seed oils turn you into a cuck. That was the discourse around it. Okay. Like, I'm just telling you, it wasn't that complicated.
A lot of people's heads at this point. So, just to remind our audience what the research was, and so the risks of polyunsaturated fats, like which is seed oils have a very much higher both amount of and ratio of polyunsaturated fats to the other kinds of fats that they have. So that's corn and sunflower oil compared to, say, butter and coconut oil. And we have in fact, I can show.
So they don't like neutral oils that you use when you're cooking that don't like, because butter, it tastes like something, right? Whereas when you use a neutral oil like canola oil or vegetable oil or even like avocado oil, doesn't taste anything like avocado. It doesn't impact the flavor of your food the way that butter would. So they just don't like neutral oils. They want, for some reason, I always thought that everything at fucking Carl's Jr. tasted like butter. So they want everything to taste like Carl's Jr.
Here, you can just show my screen. This is something that we showed back in January of 2024. This is from this research that was published in 2018, Grutfeld et al. 2018, in which they have, this is not showing everything. There we go. Corn oil and sunflower oil at the top with a high degree and amounts of the polyunsaturated fats with those really high curves, and coconut oil and butter in the bottom two having much lower degrees.
Yeah, but you take that butter and you clarify it to make ghee, and you probably end up with a graph much like the sunflower and corn oil.
Lower both amounts and rates of, and note the y-axes here, which is that the corn oil and sunflower oil actually have y-axes that go to 20, and the coconut oil and butter have y-axes that only go to 10. So it's actually twice as bad as it looks.
Yeah.
It makes it really easy to burn your food too, because there's a lot of shit in there that isn't oil.
What this research found is that polyunsaturated fats produce, when fried, a high degree of aldehydes. You will be familiar with, for instance, formaldehyde. Everyone has heard of formaldehyde, knows that it's not good for you. And with regard to aldehydes alone,
I mean, it's for you unless you're dead.
Unless you're dead, in which
it's fine in like a small amount. Your body makes formaldehyde.
Fresh.
Yeah, it keeps you looking fresh.
Yeah.
Not being fresh, but looking fresh.
All right.
Yeah.
We just took a weird turn. I apologize for it.
Well,
This whole thing has been weird, Bret.
Aldehyde, formaldehyde, other aldehydes you may have heard of are produced in abundance when polyunsaturated fats are fried. And of course, where you will tend to get that is, to use the example that they used in this research, is French fries fried at a fast food restaurant. And in fact, French fries fried almost everywhere are being fried in.
Who is deep frying French fries in butter?
Yeah, or coconut oil.
from oils, from basically these mass-produced commercial commodity plants that have been hot processed and detergents used to get all of the stuff out of the seeds, that a standard portion of French fries from a fast food restaurant fried in seed oils has about the same number of aldehydes as that inhaled from smoking 25 cigarettes.
Wow.
Yeah, one portion of French fries. So,
Okay. Is that
seed oils, of
bad
course,
for you?
then grab the public attention
Is that
in part.
Is that a dangerous level of aldehydes? Is the question. Because like cigarettes have a lot of bad things for you. Are aldehydes one of them?
Maybe, or that may just be a scare tactic because, like, if you want to get people to stop smoking, explaining to them that it gives you a bunch of formaldehyde is a pretty good way. And you may not be being completely honest, but you are still giving people good advice. Also, you probably shouldn't eat French fries from a fast food place all the time either.
Actually, I don't remember the order here, but
I'd imagine like the unhealthiness of the fries in general outweighs whatever danger the boiling them in corn oil is doing.
of course, then grab the public attention
Versus butter.
when after.
Imagine like putting a bunch of butter into one of those frying machines.
It would
One of
immediately
those
burn.
fryers.
It would burn.
Yeah, it would. The place would probably smell fantastic as it burned down.
That's remarkable. Seed oils, of course, then grab the public attention in part when after. Actually, I don't remember the order here, but Kennedy started talking about how McDonald's really, used to be frying their French fries in tallow, and they should be doing it again. They were more delicious, they were more nutritious, all of this. And I don't remember if that was before
More
a
nutritious?
successful stunt. I want
They've never been nutritious. Fries aren't nutritious.
They are good though.
in which he
manned
donned
the-
in which he donned the McDonald's,
Drive-through window.
like, I think he had on the hat, I think he kept on his suit, and then he manned the drive-through window at a McDonald's. This was shortly before he sat shotgun in a trash truck.
Yeah, he made it look good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby's.
I mean, the reason that they don't fry fries in lard anymore is because vegetable oil is cheaper.
Yeah,
Like
and
corn oil is incredibly cheap.
right, that and it's like there was this probably overinflated, overstated hype and like panic about saturated fat, which the beef tallow has a ton of.
Or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
before Trump's brief employment at McDonald's.
No, he was not he would not claim to be employed. I think he did that in part as a way to poke at Kamala, who had made some claim about having worked fast food, and then there's no evidence that she ever did.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like Kamala's older than I am, right? Like, you think McDonald's would keep a record of whether or not Kamala Harris worked there in like fucking 1971 or some shit? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what the fuck, dude?
we need to
Also, like, who would make up a story about working for McDonald's?
have been
Like, she grew up a normal life. It's completely expected that she would work for McDonald's. They're one of the biggest employers in the U.S.
a famous incident in which Michael Dukakis, running for president, who was perceived to appear weak on military matters, decided to remedy that by riding around in a tank helmet sticking out of the top of a tank, and he couldn't have looked like more of a
Doofus?
yeah, he looked like a
I'm gonna go
total
with doofus.
dork. And anyway, it had a terrible effect on his campaign. Trump didn't look like he was employed at McDonald's, but he looked like he was having a good time with it. It worked in a way that
It really
speaks to
The thing is, though, when he did that, he looked amazed by all of the equipment. He looked amazed that he could take raw potatoes, put it in a fryer, and pull out French fries. And then he forgot the name of a fryer, just like I did a few minutes ago.
but it was
But,
a
like-
political stunt that
You could tell that Donald Trump had never worked at a McDonald's because he was amazed at where all the food came from and how it was made. And it's like, it's not impressive, dude. It's just fast food.
Yes, it was a political stunt,
Yeah.
but it was a political stunt that was not the candidate rolling his eyes at doing it. It was natural.
Right. And no
I mean, so far as I know, his body is constituted of 30% McDonald's.
that eating at McDonald's is good for you. But to Bobby Kennedy's point,
He was also amazed that you didn't grab the fries out of the hot oil with your hand. He was amazed that like you didn't need to touch them to put them in the little, carton thing.
for you. But to Bobby Kennedy's point, were they to go back to frying their fries in tallow, which would presumably be a very expensive endeavor, their fries would be, like I said already, more nutritious and more delicious.
Yeah.
All at once. In response to both of these things, they might
Their fries would remain being not nutritious and probably be more delicious.
assured us that cedar oils are no big deal. We talked about that in November. And then the Atlantic in December, the Atlantic Monthly, argued that tallow is really, really bad for us. And they had all sorts of health experts telling us that, well, tallow is really, really bad for us. They just referred to the fact that tallow has always been said to be really bad for us without actually trotting out any evidence because, well, there is no evidence. That's why. That's why they didn't do it.
See, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Telling us about claims of the past that were unfounded
Yep.
is step one. Step two is you need a really sophisticated model to tell you exactly what you thought. You just build it into the model and then
Yeah.
you run stuff through the model, and then you're shocked when the model spits out exactly what you have loaded into it to
Brand, you're telling on yourself. He's describing what they do.
begin with.
Right. That's how models work.
That's how models work.
I mean, that's inherently how models work. And so, of course, you can game them. And frankly, it's hard not to game them.
Right.
That is part of the problem.
Which is
So this might come as a surprise to Heather here, but fried food is actually not good for you. If you eat a whole lot of deep fried food, you will have poorer health outcomes by doing that. I know that that's going to blow her mind, but like if you fry a bunch of stuff in tallow, it's still bad for you. Like fry it in vegetable oil, it's also bad for you. Fried in tallow, it's still bad for you.
you know that models could be a valid way of generating a hypothesis, but they cannot be a valid way of testing a hypothesis, which is what is overwhelmingly being done. When you see a claim about, for example, the millions of lives saved by the so-called COVID vaccines, and you think, oh God, now there's a study and it says millions of people were saved. I wonder if that's true. Look at the study. You'll find a model. Why does this model spit that out? Because that's what they programmed it to do. So anyway, it's a classic.
Yeah.
So this is this is a version, they do this all the time too, where they assume that a good science has to not rely on anything that came before it, right? That you don't want to stand on anybody else's shoulders when you come up with your idea, and your idea needs to be revolutionary. But models are used all the time.
Yep. Bret has to first prove to me that the universe exists.
It's totally classic. Okay, so there has been for many years this global pseudoscientific public health push to reduce consumption of animal-sourced foods, especially mammals and birds. There is a push in some corners to start eating insects. There is a...
That's not a health push. That's a sustainability push. It's because like raising cattle for food and, raising farm animals produces a lot of greenhouse gases. And it wastes a lot of the food that we do produce.
meat,
We're growing food to feed our food.
plant material glued together with seed oils and other garbage and the general shape of patties, as if that will suffice to make you think you're eating a hamburger, which I've never had one, but I'm sure it doesn't.
Well, try it. It's actually pretty good.
Impossible burgers are really fucking good. So
they don't-
I'm a big fan of the Whopper from Burger King, and the Impossible Whopper, to me, subjectively, is better than a regular Whopper.
Right, but she just knows that it's bad and hasn't tried it. It's like a child, right? There, like when I was a kid, I didn't want to eat anything green.
Yep, because you knew it was bad.
Right, it's gross.
Yeah, she knows that it's bad. It's made out of plants.
Sure, it doesn't
can't
pass,
be good.
100% guaranteed to be grotesque.
Does she know that French fries are made out of plants?
They will find probably in the chem labs of New Jersey ways to dress it up flavor-wise and texture-wise in order to get closer
Why
to
the lab got to be in New Jersey?
real deal, but it's garbage.
Yeah, but there has been.
What the fuck? Neither of them have tried it, because Impossible Burgers taste really fucking good. And Impossible Chicken Nuggets, I literally would not be able to tell the difference. If you gave me a real chicken nugget and an Impossible Chicken Nugget, I couldn't tell the difference. I could tell the difference between the burger because it doesn't have the same texture, but I prefer the texture of the Impossible Burger to the texture of real meat.
Like intimations of a pushback against this agenda. And so there was an article published this year that we talked about pointing out the pseudoscientific nature of the claims that eating an animal-based diet are bad for you.
Yeah.
So that little glimmers of hope. But then
Were people doing that? Because an Impossible Burger it has pretty much the same nutritional value as a real burger. Like, it's not good for you.
the originating food compass also continued to be treated seriously. The food compass finds, for instance, that Fruit Loops are better for you than meat and eggs, and so are Pop-Tarts.
Fruit Loops are geometric.
Fruit
Loops are geometrically more regular than meat,
And symmetry is pleasing.
right?
And what is
Pleasing.
more pleasing is...
What the fuck kind of hamburgers are they eating?
Can't even get there.
Mathematically, symmetry is often an indicator of the health of a concept.
Do they eat non-symmetrical burger patties?
Health of a human being, even, to pick up on the Fletcher and the asymmetries research that Bob Trivers was
Correct.
involved with back when we were his student.
So that is 1 point in favor of Fruit Loops and 40,000 points, roughly speaking, against them. But, 1 point.
That looked at square on Fruit Loop being perfectly symmetrical. I don't even know if they are, though.
No, they're not perfectly symmetrical.
See? So they probably have some asymmetry themselves.
Oh, you're right. And that could be...
What the fuck are they talking about?
You and me at the same time. If it wouldn't be for the few milliseconds delay, we would have said that at the exact same time.
Valley.
Yes, not quite loop-like enough to really pass as a loop. So
Yeah.
maybe even that one
I
argument.
mean, Fruit Loops aren't good because they're covered in sugar.
They are
Good for you, I mean. They're delicious, but they're not really good for you.
Speaking of food,
Were we?
well,
Oh, meat. You mentioned meat. That's food.
yeah, speaking of food-ish, do you remember micro beef sushi?
No, have I blocked this out?
I think you have. Here we go.
I don't remember micro beef sushi either, and it's probably because I didn't watch their show all of 2024.
Here we go. You can show my screen briefly. Rice covered in cow cells aims to provide nutritious, sustainable food. Micro beef sushi costs about the same as plain rice, but how does it taste? So they're trying to convince us not to eat cows.
Yes.
Probably tastes like beef.
Some part of some of them recognizes that actually cow is nutritious. They've taken cow cells and coated rice with it, turning it pink and gelatinous and gross. And what this does is
That's what raw ground beef looks like.
because all you have to do is culture cow cells.
Hey now, that's different. Oh, ground beef.
Does she not know that? Okay. She said that she made her own tortillas once. Is that the only food she's ever made?
And then like throw it at the rice.
So
Micro beef sushi.
I will just,
Speaking of food, like I said,
yes, as an enticement for people to stick around, I am going
Ooh, friend, you got about
to
fucking
address
4 minutes left of my show before we're
all
turning the
of
lights red and getting
these
drunk.
nominations in one fell swoop, so that maybe by this time next year, that would be January 1st, 2026, we will be safe from these maniacs.
Okay, well, we can hope.
What is unsafe about that? Okay, so if you just toss some rice into a bowl of ground beef, is it now unsafe?
If you don't cook it.
Well, yeah.
sounds kind of nasty. Like they'd get mad at me, right? I make curry with like chicken, like GMO chicken.
I mean, arguably this, whatever she called it, micro beef sushi, would be more safe than ground beef because a cow can become infected by any number of things, and that can get into its muscles, and then you grind up the muscles, and whatever was infecting it, whatever parasite or whatever, is now in your beef. And then you eat that raw, and you now have that parasite, right? But if you're just coating rice in cow cells, there's no way for pathogens to like be in that unless it's handled improperly. So like you're probably much safer eating this, beef cell rice
I want to try
than
it
you
now.
are eating beef cell beef.
Yeah, I want to try it now.
Speaking of
Yeah,
food,
I would try it. I'd probably cook it first because I don't like the taste of raw beef.
It's rice. You have to cook it. I also don't like the taste of raw rice.
it's like
I assume it was cooked. It didn't look like raw rice.
Remember this with Ohio?
Well, you couldn't see the rice.
Claiming that with their introduction of a polyploid potato, which they also seem to think was only something that ever happened in plants, that they imagined a static world and a static potato and there being perfection, which points out not just a conflation of complicated with complex, but also just a complete failure to understand an evolutionary system, which if you are in the biotech business, you really need to understand both complexity and evolution space, and one doesn't.
I do want to bring up again, she mentioned something earlier about eating bugs, and she kind of mentioned it as if like, that's disgusting. No one would do that. But you can cook bugs to be fucking delicious.
Also,
Like, you can cook a bug and make it like a gourmet meal.
So also there's just bugs have been used in cooking, particularly in dyes, for a very long time. So I don't even know what the fuck she's talking about.
Yeah. So like I feel like these two have the palate of a toddler.
They probably just eat whatever's available when they're hungry, and then come on here and fucking pontificate about something that has nothing to do with them because they probably just eat like everybody else.
And I honestly don't think that she's ever cooked raw ground beef, because that bowl of, beef rice pretty much looked like raw ground beef. Like it was a little more lumpy, but she called it like gelatinous and pink. And it's like, yeah, that's what raw ground beef looks
But
like.
understanding complexity doesn't get you all the way to understanding evolution space.
Yeah, sounds like
Yep. Sounds like it's time for us to end the podcast part of the show. Go ahead and put them right back on academic probation where they were, where they were up until just a fucking few hours ago. Academic probation is a thing where we will only run short clips of them during the Sunday show, or if we have an academic on to discuss them, like I don't know, like if Marcus Homozygote were to come back on and want to do a Bret and Heather with us as an academic, we would allow it. So that's not quite being fired, but they're pretty much fired again. And I'm not soliciting any opinions on that. That's just what we're doing here. They're back on academic probation. They can reapply. I know they get a mulligan at midnight on January 31st of this year.
It's good to know that they're just as racist and stupid as the last time we saw them.
Right.
They haven't changed one bit.
And they went back to a wooden room, which is fantastic.
Maybe it's the wood that makes them racist and stupid.
No, because they were in a non-wooden room for the last time we put them on academic probation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Fuck it. You want to read the show out, HK?
All right. This has been the Intellectual Dollar Tree. We do this show every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. If you're listening on the podcast, you'll miss Red Light, which we do after the song you're about to hear. So tune in live one time, and you can see us continue to mock these people. If you'd like to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/echoplex or at eplex.store, where you can also buy our merch. And you can check out echoplexmedia.com for information on all our other shows. All right. Stick around if you're listening live for Red Light after this song. And this is Boomers by Periscope.